IMHO Talk Show.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself to your listeners. I am Abigail Spanberger. I'm the candidate for governor, Democratic nominee running here in Virginia. And at my core, I'm somebody who grew up in a household of service, focused on community and helping people. My mother was a nurse throughout her whole career, and even in her retirement is the consummate volunteer, helping in all places at all times. When I was growing up, she worked in the emergency room, and she later in her career, after retiring, volunteered at free clinics throughout the Richmond area. My dad was a career federal agent. He worked fraud cases his whole career, and he's an Army veteran. And we moved around a bit when I was a kid growing up and settled in Richmond. It's the last place my family moved. It's the place we've long called home. And I went to high school in Henrico County, graduated from the University of Virginia, and always knew I wanted to pursue a career in public service, followed first in my dad's footsteps as a federal agent and then as a CIA officer. In addition to having grown up in a household of service, I've endeavored to create one now. My husband, Adam, and I have been married for 19 years, and we've got 3 daughters. The oldest will be a senior in high school next year, and then we've got an incoming 9th grader and a 6th grader. And at my core, I want to make sure that in every way possible, I endeavor to make our community in Virginia stronger and better for the next generation. And that's really what drives me in politics. I got involved in politics for the first time after the 2016 election because I thought that so much of the divide and anger and chaos and bad policymaking that was hurting people was out of step with what I thought our communities deserved. And so I ran for Congress. I was the first Democrat elected since 1968. And I did it initially to stand up for what I believed in and what I thought was right and how we could help people. But I also found that I really love serving in this way. And so now I'm running for governor. And it's been amazing to travel across the state, meeting people and listening to voters and Virginians. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the campaign trail. But most importantly, I look forward to doing right by Virginians once we win in November. I think the way we honor our history is by teaching it, by making sure that our kids know the full scope and breadth of our history. I mean, Virginia has an incredible history, but it's incredible in that it is the greatest tragedies and the greatest triumphs, right? The founding documents of our nation were conceived of the founding fathers right here in Virginia, but Virginia is also the place where slavery first came to what is now the United States. And it is through recognizing the worst of our history and the progress that we've made that I think we can have a fulsome understanding of the successes throughout Virginia's history. And I think that for any person, understanding the good and the bad throughout our history is essential to understanding history. And I think sometimes it for those that don't necessarily want to learn that fulsome history or don't want kids to learn it, I think we're limiting in an important and detrimental way our understanding of how far we've come as a country, with the aspiration for how much further we should continue to go. And I think fundamentally diversity, equity, and inclusion is about having an intentionality about understanding people's perspectives and backgrounds, and in some cases, the history that preceded that. And so, I think that we are stronger when we have diversity of opinion and a focus on understanding others and an intentionality to it. And so, I think it's unfortunate that some folks have sought to both vilify those efforts and forget our history. Well, certainly within Virginia, we have an effort going through the General Assembly to put a constitutional amendment in place that would ensure in Virginia's Constitution the right of women to access reproductive health care, including, all types but specifically abortion access. I think that what's important to note is that in Virginia, we have Medicaid expansion, which is something that continues to be under threat from from members of Congress at this moment. We also have threats to the ACA and our healthcare system kind of overall. It's one of the reasons why I have rolled out an affordability agenda focused on healthcare, affordable healthcare, and also prescription drug pricing. But moving forward within Virginia, it's going to be important that we put this constitutional amendment in place. And fundamentally, I think that decisions that are so deeply personal should be left between a woman and her family and her physician. And I do not think that any politician, governor, state legislator, or federal legislator should have a place in dictating the choices of women, and importantly also in dire and emergency circumstances, dictating the options that exist for medical providers trying to save the lives of women. I answer this question in three parts. One is talking about the political side of things. And so my time as an elected official in Congress before I started running for governor, it was clear to me that people don't trust Congress. And frankly, I don't blame them at all. And so among the things that I worked on were reforms within Congress. I wrote and then led efforts to ban members of Congress from being able to buy or sell individual stocks during their time in Congress, because there's always all these reports about something major happens in the world and somebody's buying or trading and making money off of whatever that event is. So I said, here's the easiest way to fix it. If you come to Congress, you have to make certain, air quotes, sacrifices. And so you have to endeavor to show that you're trustworthy. And that means during your time in Congress, you shouldn't buy or sell stocks. When I left Congress at the end of my term, I turned that legislation over to a colleague who continues to push it. I'm hoping to see that pass. But I say that because I think it's important that we take affirmative steps to do whatever possible to regain public trust. From my time in law enforcement, I worked narcotics and money laundering cases, and I worked for a time on the HIDTA, High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Force in Northern Virginia, but predominantly in DC and then into Maryland. And I will say that experience as a very young professional was one where I had the occasion to go into circumstances where people were in a dire position. And most of the time I was the only woman on a search warrant or an arrest warrant, which meant that when there were women or often children in the house where we were doing an arrest warrant or a search warrant, I was the one sort of tasked with staying with them. And so I think that while I have a strong understanding of the law and certainly a feeling of a duty to uphold it, I also have seen firsthand the most dire and tragic and difficult of circumstances where one decision has upended someone's life, or perhaps a series of bad decisions have importantly upended the entire community or their families' lives. And so I mention that because I think the perspective is one that isn't what people most obviously think about, but it is one where I've seen the humanity and the tragedy in circumstances as a law enforcement officer. And I've watched far more senior law enforcement officers engage with the deepest wells of empathy and focus. I mean, certainly doing their job, but doing it well and purposefully with a sense of duty to the community, both for those, facing the law and otherwise. And I think then looking towards the future as governor, it is my hope that the General Assembly will continue to move forward, and I know they will, with an effort to do the full restoration of rights for those who've previously lost their voting rights, have a constitutional amendment that will make that automatic. But while I do think that will go through, that will be active moving into the future. And so as governor, it will be incumbent upon me to be very purposeful and intentional about ensuring that anyone else who might be eligible to have their voting rights restored, but that eligibility came before the constitutional amendment ultimately goes through, that I will be active and focused on ensuring that we are able to restore the rights of the community members and the Virginians who who are eligible before the point in time when that constitutional amendment go in place.
Thank you for that, Ms. Spanberger, and certainly good luck to you on the race to the governor's seat. And we hope to have you back to kind of continue this conversation and inform our listening audience of your platform and how you intend to work on behalf of them.
Thank you.